So humans need it, the planet needs it, all life needs it. And most humans are deficient in it. What is it? It's iodine. So welcome to the WellWave Now, your portal for wellness insights. Meet your empowerment team. We have Dr. Bob Levine here today. He's a renowned brain researcher and a natural leader in drug-free pain elimination. So his national leadership in that project is so amazing. If you have not done a one-on-one with Dr. Bob yet, you definitely want to do that. He is so knowledgeable. And after spending 20 years in the big healthcare system at Henry Ford, he saw all of the benefits and also the side effects of what medications can do. And so he's taken a drug-free approach to eliminating pain. So please do a one-on-one with Dr. Bob. Our executive producer, Tim Daniels, is with family and traveling today, so he won't be here. But Tim is a wellness plan manager, builder of personalized wellness approaches that are as unique to you as you are, and is really helps you optimize your health. He's also an expert in pulse electromagnetic field therapy. That's how I met him. Represents a class 2 medical device that we want to bring into the wellness centers. And I'm Breck Rice, your healthcare disruptor and decoder of medication complexities and community health and integrative wellness leaders. So together, we're your wellness catalyst committed to elevating your health, enhancing your functionality, and optimizing your performance at every stage of life. WellWave Now, where your timeless wisdom and insights are your wellness path. So I want to welcome today to the podcast Philip Coles and Sean Mullins. Welcome, gentlemen. Appreciate you both being here. Yeah, super excited to jump into this topic and learn more about molecular iodine today. But before we, jump into all the questions here and all the benefits that molecular iodine has, Philip, a question for you because there's a lot of different iodines. So I want our audience to better understand the difference between. So, I mean, think of ionized salt. You have the iodine solution that they put on you to prep you for, surgery. And then you have the molecular iodine that can be digested. So what are the differences?
Well, the technologies of iodine in the last 200 years have all been game changers. 200 years ago, Lugol's was created by a doctor to treat tuberculosis. And Lugol's, what he discovered was that you could use potassium iodide as a solvent to dissolve iodine in the solution. And it's a very powerful iodine. Typically, Lugol's one drop has 6.25 milligrams of iodine, molecular iodine, but it also comes with 12.5 milligrams of potassium iodide. So humans' RDA is 150 micrograms per day. So it's one drop of Lugol's is 40 times the RDA. And there's always been a conversation about ODing on iodine, and we think that that could possibly be part of the story. But that product was made for treating tuberculosis. It was never really intended to be used daily. And now today, it was one of the best sources of iodine. If you look at nascent iodine, that's an interesting product. And the story behind that is that it was a dream that Edgar Cayce had in 1930. And in that dream, the story is that God told Edgar Cayce that humans need nascent iodine to survive. And that's true. The sole function of the thyroid is to pull iodide out of the blood and convert it into atomic iodine. And then that atomic iodine is stored in the thyroid to then be attached to T3, T4 hormones. So the 3 and the 4 in T3, T4 hormones are iodine molecules. So they're described as thyroid hormones. But getting back to the different forms of iodine, to just answer that question completely, in the 1950s, there was a drug that was invented that was a synthetic T3 hormone called Synthroid. And for people that don't have a thyroid, they need that drug to survive. And if they don't get that drug, they will die, whether it's 6 months or a year and a half. You have to have those T3 hormones to regulate the life and function of the cell. And of course, the synthetic hormones do a pretty good job of that. But talking about the Synthroid review that's coming up with the independent pharmacies, is that the Yale, University of Arkansas, and Mayo Clinic study from a few years ago is saying that only 10% of the hard users of Synthroid actually need that drug. The other 90% need to supplement their diet with proper iodine, sufficient iodine, so that their thyroid can make those hormones. But getting back to the different forms of iodine, I might have got the date mixed up. I think maybe the 1950s was when
That's been in the table salt.
Povidone,
Yeah.
Povidone-iodine. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, I actually backing up. Yeah. Sorry. So 1920, we had iodized salt, and everybody recalls when we talk about iodized salt that it was for goiter, but the part that they don't recall was that it was crucial for IQ as well. It's so important for women to get more iodine in their diet when they're making a child. In fact, their RDA goes from 150 micrograms to 220 when they're pregnant, and then up to 290 micrograms per day when they're breastfeeding, because that child is going to require those T4 hormones for the development of its IQ, its central nervous system, and skeletal structure. And if that doesn't happen, if she's not making enough, she's going to be the first one to suffer. So I always say to nutritionists, how many women have you heard say that baby sucked the life out of me in the last trimester? And it's because the way nature would have it, the child is taking those T4 hormones from the mother, and they're the only hormones that cross the blood-brain barrier to the child for the nourishment of its major functions.
What about T3? Does T3 cross too?
No, the T3 doesn't cross. The T3, what happens with a T4 when for males or for when women aren't creating a baby, is the T4s interact with your metabolism. And in that interaction, they drop a molecule. They drop some of that energy, become a T3, and then the T4 goes to the nucleus of every cell in your body for it to be a healthy cell. That the T3 actually regulates the life and function of the cell.
Excellent.
And so we've got table salt 1920, we've got nascent iodine 1930. Basically, what happened with nascent iodine was they figured out how to do it. They were using electricity to break apart the covalent bond of molecular iodine. And after about 10 years, they abandoned it because they couldn't find any use for it. And then fast forward to the 90s, people started making it. They state all of the qualities of molecular iodine as to their claims for nascent iodine. And we've challenged them on these. They say it's thyroid support. But what nascent iodine is, in fact, is atomic iodine. It's what your thyroid normally makes from iodide. So what we state is that can only bypass the function of your thyroid. And if you bypass a vital gland like your thyroid, you're going to put it to sleep. That's what happens. You put your arm in a sling, for 2 months. When you go to take the sling off, that arm, you need to work it. It takes a while before it can be
needs rehabilitation. Yeah.
Rehabilitated. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We've done a podcast on a similar situation, right, with the semaglutides bypassing the hormones of that help you metabolize sugars, and when you're bypassing those hormones, the gut health and going right directly to the cell with a semaglutide, you're going to just put those hormones more to sleep, and they're not going to do their job to help you with your balance of weight. So we did a whole podcast on that earlier. So same thing is happening by bypassing the thyroid in this situation. So literally 90% of the patients that are on that particular medication could potentially wean off of that medication, is what you're saying?
Well, what the study states is that only 10% of them need the medication. The other 90% need to change their diet. And what they need to do is they need to eat more fish. How molecular iodine is normally created by our body is we're not consuming molecular iodine in nature. In fact, it's rare that occurs. And just a very quick explanation, the oceans are the largest reservoirs of iodide on the planet. There's 1,000 tons of iodide emanating off of the oceans up into the atmosphere. And actually, that's what balances the Earth inside of the stratosphere is iodide. But when lightning strikes the ocean, and that occurs 500,000 times a day, when the lightning strikes the ocean, it converts the iodide in the ozone into iodine, and you're now breathing iodine in the air. So remember, when patients were convalescing, we wanted them to be by the sea, and when there was a lightning storm coming around, they'd wheel everybody outside to breathe the iodine into their lungs because it's so enlivening. It livens the brain. It helps with healing. One of the things that we know about molecular iodine in the body is that when a tumor is formed in the body, protecting yourself from cancer, there's a high concentration of molecular iodine in the cells that form the wall around the tumor. And it's very interesting. One of the studies that we have on our website on Good Iodine speaks of how iodine supplementation is an adjuvant for chemotherapy. And one of the reasons why chemotherapy doesn't work is because the cancer cells actually have a method of communication with the mycoplasma that surrounds the tumor, and it changes the bacterial nature of the blood. And that what happens is that it pokes holes in the chemo and weakens it, so that when it comes towards the tumor, it doesn't actually penetrate to take out cells like what chemo is.
So, Philip, you were, before you go on further on that comment, explain, you said it's an adjutant?
Adjuvant.
Adjuvant. Explain that.
Well, iodine, taking more iodine facilitates the chemo to do its job. And so okay. I'm not exactly sure as to the science, to the right way to speak of it, but in layman's terms, what it does is it also possibly changes the bacterial nature of the blood so that it can't poke holes in the chemo. So the chemo can actually penetrate the tumor and go in and take the cells out. There is so much that we don't know. I know that a T3 hormone is required to regulate the life and function of a cell. And if that doesn't happen, the cell is like a car without a driver. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a complex thing, but it doesn't have a function.
And it's apoptosis, it's pre-programmed cell death, has a lot of issues as well, because iodine from the inside, the I2 molecule in the nucleus is what kind of breaks through that to destroy that cell. And if you don't have that driver, you have an abnormal cell at that point. And you know what can happen with those? They last too long, and they can become problematic for the body.
So Sean, continue on then, and thank you for taking on your father's legacy. So Sean Mullins, his father is the scientist behind the whole Good Iodine project. Mm-hmm. and appreciate you carrying on his legacy. Tell us just briefly some of the other health benefits. So we've now talked about thyroid, which we're going to go back to because we could literally do a whole episode on each one of these topics. But just highlight some of the other benefits. So now we're understanding its benefit to treating of oncology, thyroid. What else?
So essentially, when what Phil was mentioning is that when you're close to the ocean and the lightning strikes the ocean, it's basically oxidizing the iodides in the air and reconverting them to iodine, which, like Phil said, it balances the ozone and balances our planet's ecosystem. But that on itself, when it's traveling in the air, and that's why even topical iodines, very rare that you're going to have a doctor other than painting betadine, which is another product that we didn't really get into. We were talking about nascent iodine, Lugol solution as well. The other iodophore technology is essentially betadine, which surgeons and doctors wash their hands with. And that's what really stains quite a bit. However, knowing that iodine is nature's finest disinfectant, they can put it on the skin and paint it on the skin. But because they didn't quite understand how to keep the iodine at a great concentration, so they found out, I think it was in the 50s, and that's where Phil was getting to. In the 50s, plastic started becoming more and more popular in labs, and they were doing iodine testing, and basically the iodine was getting embedded into the plastics, and they didn't know how to take it out. It took them many more years to find out how to remove the iodine from that plastic. With that in mind, they created the product betadine, which before surgeries, you're going to have it painted on you before they make any incision. They can put it on topically, but they cannot put it inside the body because it's got a high quality of plastics and other surfactants that are not good for the body. So we know it can heal cuts and wounds, and there was tinctures of iodine for years that people would use to treat any kind of little ailments and things like this. But another test that was done, we're talking about the biggest organ is your skin. So knowing when you're close to the ocean, if you have any skin issues, they kind of disappear right away. It's the same with iodine. We had a private study that was done by Dr. Joseph Verone, and he realized that he's able to treat patients that are coming into his clinic who had acne. So he was just spraying a light solution of iodine on the face, and it was greatly improving the scarification as well of those acne, the blemishes that they would have on their skin. And yeah, so he was basically running through a whole gamut of this, knowing that iodine is also needed to create your T3 and your T4 hormones. The rest of the studies that we were doing as well was noticing that your T3, T4 hormones are also responsible for a whole bunch of other hormone production as well. So without the T3, T4s, you're not just losing out on T3, T4s with Synthroid, for example. People that are going to use Synthroid, it's helping them all throughout their body, minus the thyroid, because we were talking about a handicap. It's bypassing your thyroid, even using Synthroid, being a synthetic hormone. So essentially, all of this together, we've noticed that it is a forgotten element, but we've been testing it for 200 years. And the 21st century iodine technologies is what we have today. It's a water-based iodine product with no surfactants, no alcohols, no plastics. You can drink a bottle, for example, and we only have, in our bigger ones, maybe 4.5 milligrams of iodine in our smallest bottle. And that's it. Whereas Phil was mentioning, one drop of Lugal solution is thousands of percent and can be potentially dangerous if you're using it as a dietary supplement. People today, what they're going to use Lugals for a lot is they just put a drop on their wrist and they rub their wrist, or they put it on their skin, knowing that there's a 10% absorption rate when you put anything on your skin. They could not put it directly in their mouth. That would really, really hurt them as well if they don't dilute it. And they put usually a drop, I think, in 2 liters of water, Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're trying to dilute it. However, if you drink that 2 liter of water, you're still getting 3,000% of your iodine intake that's been mixed with other surfactants as well, and potassium iodide, like Philip said, which is not necessarily good to ingest that way. So even our product, we used to make a pure iodide solution as well, that our iodine solution we would convert to iodide. And I know those terms get kind of mixed up every once in a while, that even iodized table salt, that's iodide and not iodine. So like Phil mentioned, iodine in nature is very, very rare to come by. You get it on the ocean. You can find it in your gut flora as well, your gut health, because it takes a peroxide to convert iodide back to iodine. So if you drink iodide or you eat rich foods with iodide, either codfish, kelp, and things like this, in your gut, you will have some peroxide that will go in and convert that back to an iodine again, to go into your blood and kind of start to disinfect again inside the body. And that's where Phil was mentioning with the tumors, is that Terry and I spoke to a German doctor, a scientist, who he was doing much research on that specific wall that was surrounding the tumors that was not allowing the chemotherapy through. And after speaking with him, we were wondering if iodine could kill that. And that's where Phil mentioned, yes, in fact, you notice a huge concentration of iodine that's trying to go destroy that wall. And if you don't have enough, well, that's where some people can have issues and not assimilating the chemotherapy properly and continuously having this tumor that's not getting better, and if anything worse. So keeping the proper levels at a daily is not easy. The population is highly iodide deficient. And that's, iodide, the moment you'll put iodine, our product, when you spray it in your mouth, it'll convert immediately with any kind of bacteria, doesn't matter, in your mouth, it'll convert it to iodide.
Breaks apart.
So you have the molecule of iodine is basically connected as two. When it attacks, it breaks apart and creates two negatively charged ions that are iodide. So nascent iodine is actually a single positive iodine molecule, which is essentially what your thyroid is taking iodide out of your blood, and it's using peroxidase from your brain, which is a natural peroxide, to convert that into atomic iodine to inject it into your hormones. So there's a lot of health benefits when it comes to iodine and iodide as well, and basically just keeping those levels up. And we know hypothyroid, or patients that have hypothyroidism, they have a whole gamut of problems that are going on, and essentially a doctor does not have, or a naturopath does not have the tools today to know what product to prescribe that patient other than Synthroid, being a synthetic hormone, because there's no ingestible iodine or a proper iodine pill. Dr. Bob, yes, you have a question.
And you're on mute, Dr. Bob.
Oh, you got to unmute.
You're on mute. Yep.
Sorry. When we talk about good food sources for iodine,
Yep.
is it iodide like seaweed? Is it iodide?
Correct.
All of it's
Yes.
iodide.
DIDE. So
It's all
iodide. So
iodide.
Two iodine molecules stuck together.
It's one. So iodide is your single. It's already been deactivated. So iodine, the second it kills something, so especially if you pour iodine in the ocean, whatever it touches will convert it to iodide. So in water, in lakes and rivers and oceans, you have iodide. Concentrated iodine, this was only done, and I mean, if you want to get into some history for a moment, it was Napoleon's gunsmith who was trying to create gunpowder, and they had nothing else to create it other than kelp at the time in the 1800s. And he was burning kelp, and by accident, peroxide fell onto the kelp, and it made a purple gas. And that basically went onto a metal beam above them, and it crystallized into this crystal, and basically they scraped it off, and they had a new element, and that was iodine. So, yeah.
So what's attaching to T3 and T4, the thyroxine and the thyroid, whatever the element is?
Atomic iodine, a single positively charged iodine cell, which is nascent iodine. So the nascent iodine is very high charge. So when you're ingesting it, it is not bioavailable immediately. So you need to, it takes 3-4 hours before that iodide, I should say, is bioavailable. Because it's so high charge, they had to shock it with thousands and thousands of volts of electricity to split the charge, whereas your body does it naturally. To get it done, how can I say, synthetically, with them creating it in a bathtub, for example, and shocking it with thousands of volts, they're splitting the molecule, but keeping it positive. Your body can't use that. Your thyroid needs iodine.
I often say with nascent iodine, it's man playing with God.
Yes.
You know, what the natural order is, you've got molecular iodine, interacts with bacteria and deactivates a virus. And in that interaction, it breaks apart into two negatively charged iodide molecules. Those go down into your stomach. Your hydrochloric acid will actually convert a certain amount of those back into molecular iodine, which is what normally happens. You know, your body eats a piece of fish, uses the iodide in the fish to convert with the hydrochloric acid into molecular iodine. And then both iodide and molecular iodine enter the bloodstream, go past the thyroid every 16 to 18 minutes. And the job of the thyroid is to pull out iodide only. The molecular iodine goes past it and does what it does. And what molecular iodine does in the body is it kills invaders. And then when it kills invaders, it breaks apart into iodide. And then it can become molecular iodine in the stomach again. It is a cyclical element that is always revolving. And in fact, your body will convert molecular iodine to iodide and vice versa, depending on what's needed and where. And if you picture a cell, I want to get this out because I always forget this. If you picture a cell like a swimming pool, and the ping pong ball is the center it's the nucleus of the cell. And so the T3 hormone, it penetrates the cell, goes to the ping pong ball to regulate the life and function of that cell. Without that, that's a car without a driver. And within that swimming pool, molecular iodine moves around freely and will kill invaders. And when it does that, it breaks apart into iodide.
Yeah.
So what iodide provides in the cell, moving around freely in the cell, is it provides reproduction, as well as the general health of the cell. Mm-hmm. And molecular iodine is also essential for apoptosis to occur. You know, we have 200 different types of cells in our bodies. Brain cells, 200 years, heart cells, 15 years, liver cells, 16 to 18 months. And what actually started us on this path of finding out all of this information was we had users of our good iodine. After a year and a half, their livers were working. And they were telling us this.
A few people like that were on liver transplant lists in their mid-30s, and they ended up being removed, and the doctors were kind of scratching their heads saying, what are you doing different? Because of the symporters that are grabbing iodine which I was going to get to as well, Breck, back to your question, but every organ in your body has an iodide symporter, which is trying to grab iodides and iodines to try and repair if there is any damage done to that organ. So essentially, to talk about that, there's many elements that can help with clearly. But when Phil was talking as well about iodide being placed into table salt and them using potassium iodide or sodium iodide, essentially is what they're creating. When they created that solution, it was the government in Europe in the 1880s that did it first, and America came 50 years later. When America decided to go on board with iodized table salt, that was the only table salt that you could buy on the shelf. People were big on steak and potatoes and salting everything, and milk and beer, and bread and cheese, and there was iodide that was put into all of those products. It's been since removed from everything other than iodized table salt, and the iodized table salt is now pushed to the side of the shelves for new Himalayan salts and all these craft salts that do not have iodides in them.
And it was never a good delivery of iodine, first of all. Like example, if you want to get enough iodide in your body to make enough molecular iodine and do what we need to do, you need to eat 15 pounds of cod or 15 pounds of haddock every month.
Yep.
And if you wanted to do it with tuna and salmon, you're at 30 pounds.
More.
Because of the amount of iodide they have. And they're the highest. Then you got the plants. And a lot of the sources of the potassium iodide is from plants, and of course the plants are the filters in the ocean, just like they are above the sea, below the sea. So the question for me is, with sea moss and all these products, where are you getting it from?
And I wanted to just finalize my thought with this table salt, is that when they did do that product, and Phil was talking about breastfeeding mothers and children and IQ. And not only that, but we're talking about brain and physical and skeletal development as well. And they noticed that when they started selling this table salt, there was a lot of asylums, I should say, that were being shut down because they realized there was a direct correlation with, and I hate to use the term, but it's with cretinism and iodine deficiency. So a low intelligence, low IQ, missing certain limbs to your body was a direct relationship to iodide deficiency. And that closed, I think it was in the 50s or 60s, 95% of the asylums were shut down because they didn't need them anymore once they regulated the population's iodide intake, which is huge. But now that, like I mentioned, the craft salts are starting to take up more room on the shelf, and your iodized table salt.
So why do you calling them craft salts? I don't understand. What's
craft? Craft.
Like
craft. Sorry.
Like pig salt or
personalized salts. Custom salts is what I should say.
Like Celtic and
exactly. And they say it on those packages. There is no iodide, or this salt is not iodized, because an iodized table salt, by law, they need to write it, and they need to say that it is an essential part to human development, the iodide that they're putting in there. So without it now, we're noticing that the hypothyroid and the iodine deficiencies are coming back in full swing because low sodium diets, that's one of them. Nobody wants to eat salts anymore, where even the iodized type, they don't even know what that means anymore. Yes, Breck.
So I want to make sure that our audience understands, if they're not eating, what did you say, 50 pounds of cod or
15 pounds?
15, 1.5 of cod, or 30
every
pounds
month.
In a month.
Half a pound a day.
Which we're not. Your delivery mechanism, I understand it, but make sure our audience understands.
Yes.
How do you deliver?
There's so much to know, but in the 1970s, they switched out iodine in our flour, in our beer, all of these foods that Sean was mentioning that we had iodide in, that our body would use and convert. Mostly when you're hearing this conversation, people use the word iodine, but we're just speaking so literal right now, so everybody really understands fully. But getting back, so the 1970s, iodide was in all of these foods, especially our flour. And in the 1970s, they switched it out for bromide.
Yeah, bromide.
And bromide is a known thyroid blocker. And in 1999, in Canada and Europe, that was outlawed. But 25 years later in America, it's still in your food.
So it's doing just the opposite of what we want. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yep.
It's a thyroid blocker. And so, it's creating this perfect storm. And, there's a lot of things. I read a book called The Iodine Crisis, which was asserting that was the perfect storm that happened in the diet that changed, that had breast cancer all of a sudden explode, and different forms of cancer. There's a study on the National Library of Medicine that's on our site also that speaks about you're 4 times more likely to have an autistic child if you're iodine insufficient when you're pregnant.
Yes. So to get back to the question,
this is all work that's been done.
Yeah. So to get back to the question for our delivery method, or delivery device, we are the only dosable pure iodine product on the market right now, and with a bunch of different concentrations as well. We have 3 to 4 products, and we can go down to 6 micrograms per spray. Now, with our over-the-counter standard bread and butter product, which is our gold label, we call it, it's 150 parts per million, or 150 ppm, and it's an okay strong solution. However, one spray is giving you 30 micrograms, so you take 5 sprays to get your 150. Now, we were talking about the Synthroid patients, and are we able to wean them off of Synthroid? And the answer to that is we have already been successful many times with many people. Now, we're not mentioning to take 5 sprays immediately.
What's many? What's many, please?
We have maybe 30 testimonials of people that are saying, hey, I'm reducing my dose of Synthroid and upping the dose of natural iodine. And we started them with only 1 spray a day. The 30 micrograms is all we were asking them to take in conjunction with their Synthroid. And after 30 days, we would ask them to go take a blood sample. And sure enough, they got back to us saying, I can drop my dose of Synthroid, and I'll go to 2 or 3 sprays of my iodine. So over 3 or 4 months, they're able to wean it off. Not everybody. Some people, like we were mentioning, that do not have a thyroid, the iodine will be a benefit to them regardless, because it'll go kill in their blood. However, they would still need to take iodine. And if they have a thyroid still and it's sluggish, they would be, chances are, still on Synthroid, but we'll be dropping their doses and still giving them a natural product.
So how many people, what percentage of people are lacking thyroid?
Well, up until about 3 months ago, when I would train nutritionists and doctors about the benefits of molecular iodine, the data we had from the WHO was that 2 billion people on the planet were iodine insufficient / deficient. And what I would tell people is that we suspect that the number is a lot higher, probably double. And just about
half the world population.
The more landlocked you are, the worse.
The most recent Newsweek article that just came out about that's based on all of the work that's been done. They're saying it's closer to 5 billion people that are insufficient, deficient.
And when we look at countries, we've got countries that 90% of the entire country is iodine deficient, and those are huge numbers. So for us,
what are those countries? What are a couple of those countries?
We have India, which is one of them.
India.
India is a really big one. So for them, their soil has no more iodide in it, and their oceans as well are not very productive when it comes to iodides. Also, in their fish, they don't really fish close to where they're at. So for them, the outskirts of India or the coastal cities, for them, they'll have a little bit more. But like I mentioned, the more landlocked you're getting into the center of that country, the worse the problem gets. And from what I'm told, and I think Phil as well can confirm with this, is that we have corner stores every corner. And in India, they have thyroid clinics every corner.
Wow. Is there a lot more autism in India?
There is, and a reduced IQ as well.
Yeah, there's
reduced IQ. Yeah.
Cretinism is still affects like 5 to 10% of the population in India.
Wow, that is incredible. Now, gentlemen, you all know that I work with community pharmacies. I have about 18 to 20,000 pharmacies across the United States that I work with, and each one of those pharmacies has anywhere between 100 to 200 patients on the synthetic, Synthroid that you've been talking about. Yes. So when we come back from the commercial break, I'd like to touch on the program that you are launching for community pharmacies. Yep. So question, Dr. Bob, you love my questions. How many folks here in the United States or anywhere in the world have a mineral deficiency?
Oh my gosh. How many? Everybody. About everybody. It's like iodine deficiency, right?
Yeah, it's like iodide being one of those, but any essential mineral, right, that helps us live and strive and have even an immune system. We rely on having these essential minerals, and so I'm excited to announce that Better Alt is a supporter of community health, and according to independent studies. And also you can go to the pubmed.gov and look at this particular supplement. It improves your energy level, enhances cognitive function, supports healthy aging while boosting your immune system. And it has over 85 to 87 of the 102 trace minerals your body needs to live. It's the #1 US brand of pure Himalayan Shilajit by Better Alt. And it's available at thebetteralt.com. You can also find it at GNC other fine retailers. I have a coupon in the TikTok shop. I'll leave in the show notes for anyone that's interested. You can find this at the TikTok shop. While TikTok is still around, it may go away after January, I understand. But yeah, unfortunately, for those that rely on getting their information there. But Better Alt, a wonderful product. I like the honey sticks. That's what I use because the resin itself is a little bit bitter. And so mixing that with some pure honey, it just really goes down a lot smoother. So let's get into that program now. Phil, if you would please explain the program just briefly of what you have for community pharmacies.
Well, what we're wanting to do with all the pharmacies is do a Synthroid review. And so what we're offering is we're offering a 3-month supply, so 3 1-ounce bottles of good iodine for the price of 2. So the buy 2, get 1 free. And what we're asking them to do is to fill out a questionnaire for us over that 90-day period. And there's going to be questions on there like your weight and to get your blood tested to see what your T3 count is and those kinds of things so that we can see if we can be an adjuvant for Synthroid. That's our real intention. As far as the question of having people get off Synthroid, I think that would be wonderful if somebody could do that. And that is entirely possible. But we're not looking to take away Synthroid. Synthroid is a drug that a lot of people rely on. And I mean, when you talk to them about not having it, as I say, it's essential for some people. But we'll see, hopefully as you start to take a supplementation of iodine, and this is the purest iodine, the purest form of iodine, the body can readily use it. It has all of these other benefits that you're gonna get from it that we're gonna cover in some other shows. But the study is saying that 90% of hard Synthroid users, so 23 million Americans, 90% of them don't need this drug. They just need a supplementation of iodine. And we've always known this. We've known that the Synthroid market was a target market for us. But we've been going through health food stores and natural stores in Canada. And initially, the pharmaceutical distributors that we were talking to really didn't want to promote our product because it's not a drug. And it's interesting because, now that we're starting to do the work with our company with drugs, those are coming. There's going to be things that we were going to be, that you can repurpose good iodine for that's going to be in a drug. We are going to be coming out with an acne product someday, but we've had people repurpose it for acne. We're going to come out with a diabetes product one day. And we've had so many people say that it's helped them to balance their blood sugars, balancing hormones. One of the reasons why we're with a company in Arizona was because the owner's wife got a hold of our iodine and she had a problem with her internal thermostat. She could never be warm. And after taking our iodine for about 10 days, her hormones balanced. She was warm for the first time in a very long time.
Which is a symptom of hypothyroid as well. So temperature regulation of the body, even fever, plus or minus, if you don't have enough, it's going to affect you. Sorry, Phil, keep going.
No, that's good. Yeah. No, the weight gain is something that I talk to a lot of people about that are on Synthroid, that they feel that they have uncontrollable weight gain. And of course, then you got people with Graves' disease that have, rapid weight loss. And, people always ask us about Hashimoto's. How does our product affect them? Again, it's micronutrient levels. So there are these reports and studies that will say, oh, you have to be worried about how much iodine you're taking. But the problem is most products are so high in dosage for the RDA to take them daily. Yeah, it could be a problem. As a trainer, one of the things that I do, Terry used to hate this when I would tell him, but I would spray iodine in my eyes because I've used it on my grandchildren so many times. I mean, for pink eye, it's an amazing product. Like 5 minutes and pink eye's gone. That's my experience. But anyways, I'd spray my eyes and then I'd drink the bottle. And if I trained 4 groups in that store that day, I'd do that 4 times. And I'd say at the 4th one, this is my 4th bottle. So that's 18 milligrams of molecular iodine. And what I know about pure elements like vitamin C, if you're using a really high quality vitamin C, your body will get rid of what it doesn't use. And there's a point at which you can do a lot of great healing with vitamin C, I think, but there are issues around vitamin C.
Just to jump in quick, it's definitely, we have a lot of testimonials from people that are using it and people that have repurposed it, doctors who have repurposed our product for other things. For us on our website, you'll go through, you won't find those testimonials just because of regulations under a dietary supplement. We are not a drug. So it's just a quick disclaimer for those listening and kind of watching that these are personal experiences of many other people that we have been speaking to that have been using it for other purposes. But we are, for now, until we get our drug identification number, and if we want to go any further with that, we are still just a dietary supplement for your thyroid and your T3, T4 hormone production to boost your metabolism with those hormones. And there's a lot of great positives when you get your thyroid checked or back into the proper levels. And that's it. So definitely what Phil is saying, knowing that iodine is a world-class disinfectant and that our carrier system is distilled water and not alcohols or plastics, you can absolutely use it topically. You can absolutely use it on infected areas anywhere on your entire body that you would have an issue with, or issues with any kind of acnes or whatnot. What Phil's saying is in eye infections or ear infections and skin problems and things like that. It can be used there, as iodine has been for quite some time as a tincture. You just won't have it burned, which is the best part.
How would somebody use it as for an ear infection?
You can spray it, or
ear infection.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's an antibacterial, an antiviral, and an antifungal.
Yep.
And by the way, when I train nutritionists, and I love to tell this story, I do, because it's one of those stories that I think is quite humorous, because love him or hate him, when COVID came along in Trump's last year, he was talking to the American people about what doctors were using to reduce symptoms of COVID. And, there was the story about hydroxychloroquine, and that's quite a story. There was a doctor in New York that prescribed 400 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine and 25 milligrams of zinc, and he only had 2 patients out of 3,000 that went to the hospital.
That was Zelenko, Dr. Zelenko, right?
Zelenko, correct. Yep. And, when Trump spoke about hydroxychloroquine, all of the health bureaucrats around him said, oh, you can OD on hydroxychloroquine. And yeah, you can. You can OD on water too. I mean,
yeah, you can OD on anything.
So Zelenko was doing 400 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine, and the test that they did to see if it was a danger to people was 2,400 milligrams. And in Zelenko's words, that's enough to kill an elephant.
Yeah.
So getting back to the my point, I've digressed so much, but I wanted to talk about Povidone-iodine very quickly, because I find it interesting that there are products on the market that are sold today, and that they're only sold in America. And one of them is Cofix RX, and one of them is Immune Mist. And these are both nasal sprays for colds and flus. And those are Povidone-iodine products. So you're spraying plastics up into your nose, and I'm sure they won't allow them to sell them in Canada, because that doesn't make sense. Why would you want to put plastic into your body?
And they even mention on the packaging, discontinue use after 2 or 3 days. It's not something to be taken as a daily supplement.
But there's also a study. I've been talking to all of the doctors from the FLCCC, and there was a study that came out about 6 months ago, and all of them sent it to me saying, "Hey, look at this. This is great for you." And it was a study where showing microplastics in children and how it was really creating a lot of respiratory problems for kids and brain problems for kids. And we do get plastics. We know we get a certain amount of microplastics, but when you're, again, Immune Mist and Cofix RX, they're not a dietary supplement. They're a cold and flu product. But the irony for us is that we can't claim that because we don't have the drug designation, but it's every bit as it's far more powerful. I mean, the kill power of Cofix RX is like 2 to 3 ppm, and our product is 150 ppm in every spray.
Yeah, I mean, what I really like about what you guys are talking about, I really like it, is the fact that you're using very clean ingredients, carrier, and so overdosing is almost impossible, because there's all kinds of information around iodine overdosing and the problems that can cause. But it sounds like you can't, and the body will eliminate what it doesn't need. It sounds like overdosing with your product is going to be like a non-event.
Correct. And the other thing is that people will mention, oh, I am allergic to iodine. Now, that is extremely rare. Just to tell you, somebody that would actually be allergic to iodine or iodide is your body wouldn't work anymore if you were. And
they'd be dead. Yeah.
Normally, it would be radioactive iodine when you're going in for scans that they would inject in your blood. Has other things in it that you would be allergic to, or if you're eating shellfish, which would have iodides in the shellfish, you're maybe allergic to the shellfish and not the iodides there. So
Right.
they get a bit confused sometimes, the doctors, say, well, it must be an iodine, but it is definitely not considered something that you can, or an allergen. There's no allergens in our bottles, and we only have 2 ingredients, water and pure molecular iodine.
So I got a question for you guys. Okay, so you don't mind me asking a bunch of questions here.
Not at all.
So you got people who are using fancy salts. I'm going to call them fancy. And,
Fancy. I like it better than craft.
Yeah. I thought you were really slamming all those salts. Are they really
No, not at all. Not at all.
I know, just joking. But so fancy salts. So, and I'm one of them. I use fancy salts. And so, am I not getting the iodine I need? Are people running around with? And I feel pretty good, feel pretty healthy, don't have any symptoms.
So one question Terry would always ask is, how's your metabolism doing, or how is your immune system doing? You don't really know. The levels are tough to find. You would feel good, but maybe you're at 70% and you wouldn't know. Now, if you're eating the salts that do not have iodide in them, you're getting it from the air. There's natural iodides in the air that are evaporating off of any body of water near you. Even vegetables have a little bit of iodide in them. You would need to eat a lot, but you are going to be getting some iodide regardless of where you are. Now, again, the more landlocked you are, the less iodides there are in the air. But mind
when I'm near the ocean, I'm in better shape, I guess, right?
Correct. So
100%.
especially like Phil was mentioning, with the lightning strikes that happen 500,000 times a day, even just being near, even if you don't see them, you're definitely going to get the breeze, and that breeze that you're feeling is loaded with iodine, and that's why people's skin actually does quite nicely when you're next to the ocean. Mind you, yes, it's got salt as well in that air, but the iodines, you'll notice that even healing properties when you're close, if you have cuts or scrapes or anything else, or even acne, it kind of disappears with the help of the sun and the ocean air. And it's really the iodine in the air that's going into your skin that is helping you with everything else that's going on.
Footnail fungus generally doesn't exist close to the ocean. Footnail fungus, but there's like 15% of the population dealing with footnail fungus.
Yeah. So for the 250 million people who are landlocked, how do you propose that they get their appropriate levels of?
Well, that's it. It's either they eat kelp. I mean, kelp is full of it. You can eat dry kelp. However, if you don't like it, and there's, you don't eat fish. There's a lot of people that don't like fish. And all the iodide pretty much that you're going to get in higher concentrations are coming from sea life and either the flora or the fauna inside the sea. So it's a tough cookie to crack because the doctors don't know what to prescribe other than an iodide pill. And those pills, knowing when it goes into your gut, you're not absorbing 100% of that pill. And depending on your age, it's even less that you're going to be absorbing. So a pill is, if I'm not mistaken, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but it might be 30% absorption when you're taking a pill in the stomach. So if you're taking an iodide pill and that pill is 150 micrograms to get your 100% RDA, you'll need to take maybe 3 of those pills to get your 100, but they don't say that. So nobody really goes to do any research to say, what am I absorbing from this pill, be it Tylenol or Advil or any kind of pill or prescription you're putting in your body. Clearly there's chemists out there that are doing their jobs properly. However, when it comes to iodide, they would prefer to prescribe you onto Synthroid, correct? And then have you on any kind of iodide supplement because they don't know the dosing. And any kind of betadine or povidone technology, like Phil was saying, is not a dietary supplement, and the dosing is all over the place. 1 drop to have 3,000% is way too much. So we're trying to kind of pierce this market to say we've got a dosable pure iodine product, and
that can satisfy anybody's deficiency.
Correct.
Without any problem of taking too much.
Correct. And not blasting and doing a shock treatment to your body by saying 1 spray is 5,000% of your RDA. So we would hate to have anybody jumpstart or boost their body with iodine when their thyroid's been sluggish for so long and all of a sudden it's working overtime to get rid of it all. That's not us. So like I said, our strongest product, 1 spray, is 30 micrograms per spray. And we can go all the way down. We have a kid's product as well, which is 6 micrograms per spray.
We don't have a kids product. So.
No, okay, great. So
and we don't have Go. We're only going to have 1 product for at least the next 6 months. Yeah. And
so
one thing, there's a study on our website. It's a Ghent study. Sorry, I just need to say this is that the Ghent study was in Canada. There was over 4,000 women participating in it, and it was for the treatment of fibroids and fibroid cysts in the breast. And what they were doing was they were drinking 6 milligrams of our iodine. So 1.5 ounces every day for a 6-month period, and then beyond. The study went beyond that. And what they found was after 5 months, 98% of the women participating in the study were fibroid and fibroid cyst free.
Nice.
Yep.
So whenever I've talked to people about this product as a micronutrient, I said, imagine if you have a daughter, that starts taking iodine at a young age, and every day she takes it, she would never develop fibroids and
during
fibroid
puberty
cysts.
and development. That is a huge point as well.
But the other thing that we found in that study was they were also trying potassium iodide, and what they said about it was it didn't work to remove the fibroids and fibroid cysts. But the other thing that we read in the study that really, I always want to bring this up with people, is that women in a fibroid cyst, 55% of what makes up that cyst is potassium. And when you're taking a high dosage potassium iodide product with molecular iodine, I know that it's said that we're potassium insufficient as well. Not enough people are taking potassium, but I don't know what the chemical reaction is with a potassium iodide, that when your body separates it to use the iodide in your thyroid, which is really the point of the product. The potassium is just a byproduct of the solvent. And if that's creating another problem for people that are trying to supplement their diet with iodine to help their thyroids, we don't know what the correlation is there. But, if you've got a propensity to fibroids or fibroid cysts, you don't want to be taking a high dosage potassium product. That's for sure.
Right.
And just know, guys, that we're not endocrinologists, we're not oncologists, chemists, scientists. We're innovators when it comes to the iodine technologies, and we know what we have. Now, we do surround ourselves with great people like yourselves that can continue this research on your sides here, and we basically do our research every single day. And we're never going to go out and say we are chemists, we are oncologists or endocrinologists, and we know everything that iodine can do in the body. We know quite a bit more than the average person about iodine, that's for sure, and what iodides and iodines do in the body. But absolutely, like these questions, if Dr. Bob, you have other questions that we're not able to answer, we'll go dig on the NIH websites, and we'll go dig on these peer-reviewed studies, and we will find the answers for you, as iodine is the most studied element on the periodic table over the past 200 years. It's been front and center for a lot of studies, more than you would think.
Well, thank you, Sean. I appreciate you covering the disclaimer there, because that's very important. And we are out of time, and I'm so grateful to have both of you on, and good to see you again, Dr. Bob, as well, to talk about this super important topic. So just to be clear, though, the pharmacy, for the community pharmacy, that program has started or will start after the first of the year?
So currently, just with the situations that's going on with the company in the U.S. and the passing of Terry Mullins, we're basically looking for a new bottling facility in the U.S. And once we find that and we get up and running, it's not very long. We have everything we need essentially, so it wouldn't take too long to set that up. We're aiming probably January, if not early February at the latest, to get that synthroid review study up and running. We just need to find the facility that'll allow us to go create our product.
And then that will be supplying these pharmacies on consignment. They don't have out-of-pocket costs. They can on consignment. You'll work with them, find out how many patients they have on synthroid.
Yeah, Phil can kind of interject here, but I believe that's the plan, correct?
Yeah, we are intending on moving forward with our original plan. What we're asking is that, we wanted to make sure we kept informing people about what the product is and getting them ready for it. Terry and I were just in Arizona at the end of November to put together the facility that we were gonna build there, and we hadn't found a GMP facility, and he was planning to come back actually this week to get that going this past week. And so Sean's just stepped up to work with me, and we're still working on that. I have so many people helping us find a place, and it's really good people. I'm expecting that we will know in the next 2 weeks where we're going to build, and then he and I will go and get it set up. And then as soon as we can get it set up, we should be able to start rolling up product in a week or two.
Well,
and quite honestly, if in your group you guys know anything about a GMP facility, let us know, and we'll give them a call. And for either dietary supplements or anything else, pharmaceuticals that they're willing to.
A friend of mine owns a vitamin company. Maybe
okay. That's what I'm saying. So even in the people that are listening right now, if they want to send emails or whatnot to us, we'll be more than glad to read them and try and figure out where we can go from here. We're having trouble.
If you want to save the chat, I put my contact information in the chat. If you will email me or text me exactly what you're looking for, then I can talk to my friend Dr. Seidman and see what he has to say about
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. We'll keep in touch with that.
And I know we're out of time. I just think the work you guys do is really important, and I've learned so much. I'm so happy to be on the show with you guys.
And I encourage everyone that is listening in to check out Good Iodine. You can find them at www.goodiodine.com. And I'll leave a link in the show notes because there's a reference code that can be used for also specials on trying out the product yourself. But thank you so much, Sean Mullins. Thank you for carrying on your father's legacy. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Philip. It's great to get to know you both more and better understand this product. Absolutely amazing. They were kind enough to set me up with samples. I'm using it on a daily basis. A couple of sprays in the back of my throat, and I haven't had any of the sniffles or colds or anything that go along with this time of year. So I'm pretty grateful.
Well, you certainly look a lot better. I got to say that.
Still, in fact, I'm worried about how well it works because I'm having to shave my head a lot more now. My hair is growing back. You know, who wants that?
It's a good point. We didn't mention it, but yes, there's quite a few things that once you kind of bring that metabolism up to par in your endocrine system, essentially, that it's and women have mentioned it as well, that their hair is more vibrant and it's growing more. And anyways, absolutely.
So you guys can help me, I guess. Huh? You guys can help me.
I guess I got to take more.
I'm going to start calling you Shaggy, Bob.
Exactly.
Well, much appreciated, guys, for the discussions here.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. You're listening to the Well Wave now. And remember, wellness, it's in you.